And we're back with audio this time. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Trish Regan Show. I am Trish. Good to have you here. Really good to have you here. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, hit the bell. I'll tell you, this is big news day because we have basically the destruction of NPR and PBS going on right before our eyes. Lots of fireworks on Capitol Hill. We're going to get to all of those because you would not believe some of the things that the woman who runs NPR had to say. Really a tragedy in and of herself, who doesn't seem to really understand or recognize the importance of truth. In fact, according to Katherine Maher at NPR, truth doesn't really matter. She used to run Wikipedia, and well, we all know how Wikipedia goes. Do we not? I think Elon said it best. History is usually written by the victors, unless, of course, you live in nowadays, and history is written by the losers who are on Wikipedia all day, who have nothing better to do than, basically take aim at the winners. Anyway, we're going to talk about that. Plus. I think there's a lot more to this signal text story. I really do. I mean, just my sixth sense of things. I suspect that it may have been a setup, and I want to give you some of my perspective and sense of why that may be. And then we're going to talk about, do we have to? We do. Wait, Jasmine Crockett again, because Jasmine Crockett is actually now being charged with assault. Lovely little lady that she is. But we begin today, thank you again for being here, on NPR. NPR being defunded in the here, in the now, because I'll tell you, it's not going well for one Katherine Maher on Capitol Hill. She's just getting sort of pounded every which way to Sunday because she clearly has a very loose relationship with the truth, which is kind of a problem when you're running national public radio, which thinks it's so important and has that kind of hushed way of speaking, very slow, very soft, as though they're telling you some kind of secret. Anyway, her secret is that she doesn't care one bit about the truth. It's not so much a secret. She actually said this in a TED Talk not too long ago. Maybe we'll go to it. But first, I want you to see Brandon Gill. You want to talk about new up-and-coming superstar. Brandon Gill out of Texas. He's a conservative congressman from Texas, junior congressman, kind of putting Jasmine Crockett, also a junior congressperson, to shame. Brandon Gill asking Katherine a series of questions. This is explosive, and I want to watch it here together with you.
Ms. Maher, I want to start with you. Just generally, would you say you generally agree or disagree with the following statement? The history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles?
I would not say I agree with that, sir.
You're not. That's good to hear. It's interesting because a lot of your thinking, as expressed by your public statements, is deeply infused with economic and cultural Marxism. Do you believe that America is addicted to white supremacy?
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half decade.
It has evolved. Why did you tweet that?
I don't recall the exact context, sir, so I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay. Do you believe that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You tweeted that in reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it. You said you took a day off to fully read The Case for Reparations. You put that on Twitter in January of 2020.
Apologies, I don't recall that I did.
Okay.
I'd no doubt that your tweet there is correct, but I don't recall that.
Okay. Do you believe that white people inherently feel superior to other races?
I do not.
You don't? You tweeted something to that effect. You said, I grew up feeling superior. How white of me. Why did you tweet that?
I think I was probably reflecting on what it was to grow up in an environment where I had lots of advantages.
It sounds like you're saying that white people feel superior.
I don't believe that anybody feels that way, sir. I was just reflecting on my own experiences.
Do you think that white people should pay reparations?
I have never said that, sir.
Yes, you did. You said it in January of 2020. You tweeted, yes, the North, yes, all of us, yes, America, yes, our original collective sin and unpaid debt, yes, reparations, yes, on this day.
I don't believe that was a reference to fiscal reparations, sir.
What kind of reparations was it a reference to?
I think it was just a reference to the idea that we all owe much to the people who came before us.
That's a bizarre way to frame what you tweeted. Okay, how much reparations have you personally paid?
Sir, I don't believe that I've ever paid reparations.
Okay, it's just for everybody else.
I'm not asking anyone
Seems
to
to
pay
be what you're
reparations, sir.
suggesting. Do you believe that looting is morally wrong?
I believe that looting is illegal, and I refer to it as counterproductive. I think it should be prosecuted.
Do you believe it's morally wrong, though?
Of course.
Of course. Then why did you refer to it as counterproductive? It's a very different way to describe it.
It is both morally wrong and counterproductive, as well as being
You
illegal.
tweeted, it's hard to be mad about protests in reference to the BLM protests, not prioritizing the private property of a system of oppression. You didn't condemn the looting. You said that it was counterproductive. NPR also promoted a book called In Defense of Looting. Do you think that that's an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars?
I'm unfamiliar with that book, sir, and I don't believe that was at my
You
time at
tweeted
NPR.
that you read that book, but
I don't believe that I did read that book, sir.
I mean, come on. So she tweets that she reads something, even though she really hasn't read it, either that or she can't recollect having read it. I just want to point out that this lady from Connecticut, who was a Middle Eastern scholar, student in college and studied at Cairo University, and is clearly about as left and woke and woohoo as you can possibly get. You know, I know she's woohoo because she did this TED Talk, and this TED Talk really proved she cared nothing about the truth. Think about this. She was running Wikipedia, and she's so proud that the Wikipedians are like trying to search for something, but truth doesn't really even matter. How can truth not matter when you're running NPR, National Public Radio? Defund them all, I say.
But one of the most significant differences, critical for moving from polarization to productivity, is that the Wikipedians who write these articles aren't actually focused on finding the truth. They're working for something that's a little bit more attainable, which is the best of what we can know right now. And after 7 years there, I actually believe that they're onto something. That for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth isn't necessarily the best place to start. In fact, I think our reverence for the truth might have become a bit of a distraction that is preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done.
All right, this is who's running the media these days, guys, okay? NPR has a lot of influence. PBS has a lot of influence. Katherine Maher, with her Middle Eastern studies scholarship, she's got a really big platform. First at Wikipedia, now at NPR. Should someone like that, with so clearly a bias, who doesn't believe in truth and thinks it's, kind of a waste of time to be pursuing it, should she be really running should she be head of a journalist organization, and should she be getting any taxpayer money for it? I don't think so. Look, NPR is NPR. It'll sort of make you throw up if you listen to too much of it, because their bias is just like oozing out of the speakers every single time you listen to it. And yet they're pretending that they're totally something else. They're pretending like they're this great journalist organization. A great journalist organization would have actually followed up on things like, I don't know, the Hunter Biden laptop. Here she is saying, oh yeah, oopsie.
First of all, I do want to say that NPR acknowledges that we were mistaken in failing to cover the Hunter Biden laptop story more aggressively and sooner. Our current editorial leadership.
Wuhan?
We recognize that we were reporting at the time, but we acknowledge that the new CIA evidence is worthy of coverage and have covered it.
Yeah. Sort of covered it, right? I mean, Katherine Maher doesn't like those inconvenient truths. The truth only matters to what, she thinks it should be. And this is how everybody's been indoctrinated there at NPR. You remember she's the one that used to run Wikipedia. Remember what Elon he said it best. I'm going to play this clip for you. Elon on Wikipedia.
There's an old saying, history is written by the victors. It's like, well, yes, but not if your enemies are still alive and have a lot of time on their hands to edit Wikipedia.
History is written by the people who can harness the most editors.
Yeah, I mean, the loser has just got a lot of time on their hands, and it's just, What do they do? Edit Wikipedia?
Apparently. And they do so with the blessing of the woman who now runs NPR. So let's look at the funding. So overall, they get 40% from corporate sponsorships. I'm going to tell you, those are going down the drain as we speak. They do get some from individual donors. They get some from member stations, which, by the way, are fed with other vehicles. Don't think that there isn't government funding in here somewhere. And they do get some money from CPB, which actually is a tax funder organization. I say, you don't give them so much as 25 cents. And you've got Amazon, you've got Microsoft, Subaru, Capital One, go down the list. Target, of course, Target in there. I don't think these companies are going to want to be forking over many dollars, though, in light of some of the things that have come out about this woman who does not believe in the truth, who goes out there and says, oh no, I didn't read that book, I didn't say this. This was terrific. Bill Ackman, he tweeted this one out and he's spot on. What does he say? Oh, she's basically a gifted liar. This woman is an articulate and poised liar. Don't take my word for it. Just listen to her answers and watch her body language. NPR should be a source of truth, information, and knowledge, not a mouthpiece and propaganda instrument for one political party, which is all it is. That's all it's been. Bill Ackman, by the way, a legendary hedge fund investor, runs his own fund, smart guy who's been more and more expressive recently. As many of these people have been, that have the money and that were afraid to say things before. He's being very vocal now, which is a good thing. I'm telling you, you can't have organizations out there that are being fed these massive amounts of money just to have one political bias. I mean, at least Fox News, you know where they're coming from. Newsmax, you know where they're coming from. But these guys, NPR, sitting there like we're playing, like we're actually real journalists. I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. And you know who else I'm not buying? PBS. PBS, also under attack today, getting exposed in these Capitol Hill hearings. Here's Paula Kruger trying to say that, as CEO of PBS, she thinks that PBS is like the greatest thing ever and is so America.
PBS stations provide something that cannot be found on commercial networks. This is because PBS stations are focused on the needs and interests of the viewers they serve. Especially in rural areas, PBS stations are the only outlet providing coverage of local events. For example, high school sports, local history and culture content, candidate debates at every level of the election ballot, and specialized agricultural news.
I would just say, you know what, that's all fine and great, so long as you don't give us the PBS spin on everything. And unfortunately, the PBS spin is the mouthpiece of the left. And there are some reasons for that, which we can get into. But first of all, consider the money going into PBS. Okay, corporate sponsorship, 20%. I have a feeling that's going to dry up pretty soon. Foundations and major donors, something like 25%. That's a big, big part of what they do. And guess what? That's all Bill and Melinda Gates and the Rockefeller Foundation and all these super, super, super lefty organizations. So they have to respond to their donors who want this super lefty stuff. And that's what they're doing. And I'm telling you guys, this is a problem. This is a big part of where we are today and why nobody trusts the media, because the media does not deserve to be trusted. They don't. This is what I love about being solo, and I'm totally solo here on the Trish Regan Show. It's good to have you. Please make sure you subscribe. We appreciate the sponsorship, which I'm very transparent about, that we have, for example, with our friends over at American Heart for Gold. American Heart for Gold, you can get up to $15,000 in free silver right now with the special offer. Just go to trishlovesgold.com. Trish Loves Gold kind of has a nice ring to it. Or you can text Trish to 65532 in the spirit of independence, right? Gold is the one thing that can really last you. It's lasted thousands of years, shall we say, and is one of those great hedges against inflation and hedges against Armageddon, and just hedges against everything, I would say. 1-844-495-1115 is their number. Give them a ring. Use my name. Again, you'll get that up to $15,000 in free silver with qualifying offers. But I'll tell you this, PBS is done for. Done for, done for, done for. As it should be. No more taxpayer dollars going to any of these things that are promoting so much propaganda. And that's what it is. All these media organizations you see are under fire right now because they've become nothing but propaganda outlets for the left. And the FCC knows that. Brendan Carr, who's head of the FCC now under Trump, he knows it. It's why actually he's been sending letters to one Bob Iger over at Disney, which runs ABC News. It's why he's sending letters to CNN, to NBC. And why do you think we're getting all the layoffs we're getting? Why are you seeing anchors like a revolving door all leaving these networks? Because guess what? The money's drying up. They don't have anybody like USAID, I don't know, to fund all their projects anymore. And that's going to be a problem. You know, they were living pretty high and mighty there for a while. You had this thing called the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. If you've watched this show before, you've heard me talk about it, and you know I'm going to keep talking about it because you need to remember this. This is super important. This is Obama's baby. Basically, what Obama did was he lifted the ban on domestic propaganda. So it used to be in the original Smith-Mundt Act from 1948. It was a Cold War thing. They wanted to be able to get their knowledge all over the world, their view of the world, into every little country that they cared about, right? Like these are only the countries they care about. So if they want to affect regime change, et cetera, they want to make sure their message is heard. And you could do that because we had sort of first mover advantage when it came to radio, when it came to TV, when it came to Hollywood, et cetera. And so they poured a ton of money, taxpayer money, into these efforts. But the deal was you were never allowed to turn it back on the domestic population in the United States of America, not until 2012 with Obama. It was ratified in 2013 as part of the National Defense Act because somehow they thought that this would actually be able to counter any foreign-produced narratives, and you needed to be able to save democracy here at home. So this happens in 2013. Suddenly the money starts flowing. Donald Trump comes into office, and what do you think happened next, right? Remember this, because you've got these news organizations taking a ton of money. AP's one of them. $52 million. Look at these numbers. I mean, they were just raking it in. The State Department was giving them somewhere around $8.5 million. You had U.S. Agency for Global Media at $37 million. You wonder why the AP is as biased as it is, right? Here's David Sachs, the new crypto czar, talking about all this misinformation and how it was effectively propaganda fed to the United States, courtesy of USAID and others.
Okay, so we knew the U.S. government runs a $2 trillion deficit every year. We're in debt almost $40 trillion. And we also knew that anytime anyone tries to cut anything in Washington, the whole city screams bloody murder. Okay, so the question is just why? Well, now we know. The money is all going to them. It's like round tripping to them. New York Times, getting paid. Politico, getting paid. Bill Kristol, perennial warmonger, getting paid. Ukraine, getting paid. Like 11 out of 12 publications, Ukraine, getting paid.
Incredible.
Viktor Orban, who's the prime minister of Hungary, was saying that he's very popular in Hungary. His political opposition, funded by USAID. In Poland, the left-wing political opposition funded by USAID, and on and on and on it goes.
BBC. You wonder why everyone in the UK.
Paid.
So yeah.
Like
I couldn't believe the BBC is getting paid.
Every left-wing organization in the world seems to be getting paid by this slush fund at USAID, which disperses about $50 billion a year. That's $1 billion a week. That's actually a lot of money. And so it makes you wonder. You know, the left in general tries to portray itself as a movement of the people, that it's grassroots. This is the exact opposite. This is AstroTurf. This is basically money coming from the top down out of Washington to fund all of these groups, maybe not even in the United States, like all over the world. So it makes you wonder, what is the real level of local support for these left-wing policies all over the world?
Not a lot, right? I mean, what is the real support? It's like a giant psych op. You saw Bernie Sanders bragging about his 35,000 people, I think he called it even more, that he had out in Denver, Colorado, and then somebody did a GPS analysis and they found out there were only 20,000 and change. I mean, hey, you know, 35,000, 20,000. 20,000 is still a lot, but then they found out that somewhere around 80 some odd % of these people were like professional rally goers. They had been to like 9 Kamala rallies, which is a lot. I don't even think Kamala had 9 rallies, right? I mean, not when you got to line them up and pay them to get in the door. So David Sachs is onto something. we're all onto something here. In other words, the money was flowing. So why do you think the layoffs are coming? I just got a text from a friend who lost his job at Salon. They're having layoffs over there. Super liberal magazine. You got layoffs going on everywhere. And I mention this because we're going to get to those texts on Signal and what happened with Pete Hegseth and Mike Waltz and John Radcliffe. And I think this is all somehow connected. There's a takedown effort going on, whether it was going to be Russia back in 2016, or whether it's going to be you got a lousy staff that's like texting on Signal all the time. There's something up. But again, remember what we're talking about, the amount of money, basically $1 billion a week going to media organizations. It's striking. It's scary. And it was all authorized by one Barack Obama. I will say this, you know what? You need to have some faith in your institutions. We don't have it right now, certainly not in the Democrat institutions, certainly not in the Joe Bidens of the world. And this is something that Elon Musk brought up recently, the importance of trust. Americans need to be able to trust these institutions and trust their leaders, which clearly we can't right now. No wonder why.
If there's not a good feedback loop from the people to the government, and if you have rule of the bureaucrat, if the bureaucracy is in charge, and then what meaning does democracy actually have? If the people cannot vote and have their will be decided by their elected representatives in the form of the president and the Senate and the House, then we don't live in a democracy. We live in a bureaucracy. So it's incredibly important that we close that feedback loop, we fix that feedback loop, and that the public's elected representatives, the president, the House, and the Senate, decide what happened.
Yeah. Okay, like, I'm sorry, but the good news is it's coming to an end. I mean, it's a spectacular end. And let's hope it's coming to an end because, by the way, they're going to try and end Trump before he can do it. I mean, this is exactly what we're seeing unfolding here with all the Signal stuff. Don't kid yourself. I mean, there's a reason why it's happening as it's happening now. I do believe it's a setup. I'm just going to say that. Like, I've thought about it a lot. And I didn't rush to judgment. In fact, when the story first broke, which would have been the day before last, I just sort of sat on it and I watched it. And I thought, what could really be going on here? Are these just, idiotic moves? Look, it could happen to anyone, right? Like, you can send the wrong thing to someone. Or is there something more here? One thing that I found really compelling and interesting was that it was actually the Biden Intel department that put Signal, which is an app, a communications app, similar to, say, Telegram, if you've ever used Telegram, or similar to Discord, again, if you've ever used Discord. It's one of these apps, or WhatsApp. It's similar to WhatsApp as well. It's very well encrypted, though. It's like the one thing that, hopefully nobody can penetrate. But maybe somebody did, or maybe when it was set up, there was something fishy going on, or maybe they did something with his phone in the back. We can talk about that. But one thing that struck at me yesterday during the hearings, by the way, this story broke on the eve of the Intel hearings. You think that's a coincidence? I don't. I think it's very, very well planned. Anyway, here's John Radcliffe, head of the CIA, talking about how this stuff was all put on his computer and he was told he could use this and it was secure, et cetera.
So that we're clear, one of the first things that happened when I was confirmed as CIA director was Signal was loaded onto my computer at the CIA, as it is for most CIA officers. One of the things that I was briefed on very early, Senator, was by the CIA records management folks about the use of Signal as a permissible work use. It is. That is a practice that preceded the current administration to the Biden administration.
Radcliffe. Okay, so he's making the point that this was basically authorized, right? That they were able to communicate on this and that it was encouraged. But here's my question. When they loaded this, could there have been anything funny that's going on? I mean, I'm just throwing this out there. Or could somebody have done something in the back to Mike Waltz's phone so that somebody was getting added and he didn't necessarily know? I mean, he's out there. He's taking the blame full on. He's like, it's my fault. I created the chat. I'm responsible. We are doing an investigation. But again, I just point out that this sounds really, really weird. Something that my former colleague over at Fox, Laura Ingraham, highlighted yesterday when she spoke with him on the show. I want to play you this clip.
But I can tell you for 100%, I don't know this guy. I know him by his horrible reputation, and he really is the bottom scum of journalists. And I know him in the sense that he hates the president, but I don't text him. He wasn't on my phone. and we're going to figure out how this happened.
So you don't know what staffer is responsible for this right now?
Well, look, a staffer wasn't responsible, and look, I take full responsibility. I built the group. My job is to make sure everything's coordinated.
But how did the
execute?
I mean, I don't mean to be pedantic here, but how did the number?
Have you ever had somebody's contact that shows their name, and then you have somebody else's number there?
I never make those mistakes.
Right? You got somebody else's number on someone else's contact. So of course I didn't see this loser in the group. It looked like someone else. Now whether he did it deliberately or it happened in some other technical mean is something we're trying to figure out.
So your staffer did not put his contact information. But how did it end up in your phone?
That's what we're trying to figure out.
Okay, but that's a pretty big problem.
That's what we've got the best technical minds, right?
That's disturbing.
And that's where, I mean, I'm sure everybody out there has had a contact where it was said one person and then a different phone number.
But you've never talked to him before, so how's the number on your phone? I mean, I'm not an expert in any of this, but it's just curious. How's the number on your phone?
Well, if you have somebody else's contact and then somehow it gets
someone
sucked
sent
in,
you that
it gets
contact.
sucked in.
Was there someone else supposed to be on the chat that wasn't on the chat that you thought was?
So
on
the person that I thought was on there was never on there. It was this
Who
guy.
was that? What person?
Well, I'm not. Look, okay. Laura, I take responsibility. I built the group.
Wow. Okay. So she's asking the right questions here. Like, how does this happen? So apparently, think about this. So I don't know how familiar you are with Signal or Telegram or WhatsApp or any of these things, but basically you have contacts, right, in your phone. And sometimes I wonder how secure those contacts are, right? Because you may have a Google phone list or you may have something from Outlook and you put people's numbers in and maybe initials or names or whatever, and then they automatically download or populate into Signal or Telegram. So I'm just saying, what if somebody put in to his phone, was able to somehow hack into his phone and access the phone directory, and they put on this guy, Jeffrey Goldberg, who they knew would do exactly what they wanted him to do. Right? He would sit on this story. He would go to the Democrats about the story. He would ask around to the Democrats. He would never go to the administration. He would be a good loyal soldier like they are at the Atlantic. Hey, they need all that money, right? That's coming in one way or another. So the Atlantic winds up publishing this thing. The Trump administration accidentally texted me its war plans. Well, Pete Hegseth is like, no, buddy, I don't think so. These aren't really war plans. We'll get to Pete's comments in a second. But first, just to back up, this is Jeffrey Goldberg, that reporter that really is just as lefty as you can get. He might as well move to the former USSR. Here he is on CNN talking about how shocked he was about everything. And again, I go back to this. Is this really what happened, or did somebody that wanted him to know things and report things on the eve of the Intel hearings, did somebody plant this?
You were kind of walking through when this began. You weren't even sure if it was real yourself. You thought maybe I'm being spun or conned or something is happening here?
Until the day that I received the attack plan from Pete Hegseth at 11:44 a.m. that Saturday, March 15th, and then saw the attack plan said that 1:45 p.m. Eastern time, that the first bombs would be dropping in Yemen. Until that moment, until that period elapsed, the 2-hour period between that text and the first bombs being dropped, I thought it was a hoax. I thought somebody was trying to entrap me. Again, could it have been a foreign intelligence service? Could it have been a gadfly organization that tries to entrap journalists, which we know happens? I didn't know what it was or who it was, but what I did know was that the obvious answer was that this is a real conversation of the national security leadership of the United States. Seemed improbable to me, because why would they do it on Signal? Why would they do this on a messaging app? And why would they invite the editor-in-chief of the Atlantic to watch? I say this only half jokingly. I mean, I'm sitting in a Safeway parking lot watching my phone and realizing, oh my God, this might be real. I think Pete Hegseth just sent this group actual targeting information, actual sequencing of an attack, and I'm holding on to the phone. I don't want anybody to... And then I thought to myself, well, I mean, I guess they're lucky they didn't send this to a Houthi by mistake, or to a foreign diplomat or to somebody who would plausibly be in one of their phones. I guess that counts as a kind of luck.
Or maybe it was because it was supposed to happen this way. So Caroline Leavitt came out with a statement saying that there was no classified information that was sent, etc. This is similar to what we heard from Pete Hegseth, who is like, no, there were no war plans.
As I also stated yesterday, nobody's texting war plans. And that's all I have to say about that.
So those same troops that you are proud of, do you regret putting information like the ones you did in the Signal chat that could endanger those same American service members?
Nobody's texting war plans. I know exactly what I'm doing, exactly what we're directing, and I'm really proud of what we accomplished. It's successful.
You know, Spirit-filled, thank you for your generosity. He makes a really good point. Security clearances revoked and then suddenly a leak. Don't forget, all those security clearances were revoked, right? Hillary Clinton and all her friends. And then boom, presto, this happens. So because Pete said that, because they were like, no, there's no classified information, Atlantic said, okay, well, we're going to do another story on it. And so they released the text today, and you can see they're going back and forth, and they're talking about the text, they're talking about the times that they're going to trigger these weapons, etc. So this is the team update that's being sent out by Pete Hegseth to the group. Well, Pete saw this and he responded with this. So let me get this straight. The Atlantic released the so-called war plans, and those plans include no names, no targets, no locations, no units, no routes, no sources, no methods, and no classified information. Those are really some, you know what, war plans. This only proves one thing. Jeffrey Goldberg has never seen a war plan or an attack plan, as he now calls it. Not even close. As I type this, my team and I are traveling to the something region, meeting with commanders, the guys who make it all real, the war plans, and talking to troops. We will continue to do our job while the media does what it best. Peddle hoaxes. All right? So Pete's like, you guys didn't have anything, but you're going to make something out of nothing. And believe me, I'm not even going to show you all these clips because it's not worth our time. But suffice it to say, the airwaves are covered all over CNN, all over MSNBC. This is their news story, right? And they're going wall to wall with this stuff nonstop, trying to take the Trump administration down because this is what they do, guys. This is what they do. And I'm just concerned that this not derail anything. In other words, we got to move forward with everything. We have to know what's happening, and we have to sort of beat them at their own game by being 3 steps ahead. So far, this administration has done that beautifully. They're continuing to do that beautifully. Wait till you hear what was just announced on the requirement of voter IDs. You know, when you go to vote, imagine. Oh, this is scary. This is revolutionary to the left. I mean, they're already suing because they're saying there's no way he can use this executive order to actually require ID when you go to vote. It's crazy. But, you know, I'll tell you, you got to keep your head about you. You got to trust your instincts. And it's not just as a news reporter, as a journalist, I say this, but also as an investor. And it's one of the reasons why I did create this company, 76 Research. You can go to 76portfolios.com and see our top 3 portfolios there with all the top holdings. Just amazing, amazing numbers here. And I'm so proud of it. I'm here on the 1-year anniversary, and I'm psyched about that. As a special offer, I don't know how long we're going to be able to keep doing this, but you know me, I want to give you everything for free. So go to 76research.com, sign up for my newsletter there. It's in conjunction with my very dear friend who is a brilliant investor. And I'm telling you, like crazy brilliant, not just the schools back when they mattered, like Princeton, Columbia Business School, all that, but he ran billions of dollars on Wall Street for many years. And he, like me, feels very passionately about people getting the truth when it comes to investing or when it comes to making decisions about their future. So go check this out. Use my code word $, sign up the first 2 months, just $1 a month. It is well worth it. Meanwhile, I mean, I'm just looking at these media organizations that are deteriorating in real time, and it's happening. Like, it's happening, and it's important that it happen fast, right? Because they're going to try and do everything they can to take us down first. And I think the good news about this administration, reminder to subscribe to the show, by the way, the channel, I appreciate you being here. The important thing about this administration is that they get it, and they know what's going down. This is not the Trump administration from before, which was great, but I think there was a naivete during those days. Donald Trump wanting to do the right thing at all times and still wanting to do the right thing, but knowing that the odds are stacked against him, including this little number. Did you see this? Breaking right now, we have learned that the new judge in the case against the administration for those signal war texts happens to be, this guy. Yeah, you know who I'm talking about, Judge Boasberg. He's the same judge that, by the way, was the one in the deportation case. Small world, shall we say. I mean, wow, it was their lucky draw there. They drew this guy again, James Boasberg, and he is probably not a big fan of the Trump administration at this point, considering how many people have called for him to be impeached. But I'm just kind of wondering, is this a coincidence? How do these things happen? How? This is the lawsuit that's being brought by an American oversight group against the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, and other officials. It's basically seeking to prevent the unlawful destruction of, quote, federal records and to compel defendants to fulfill their legal obligations to preserve and recover federal records created through unauthorized use of signal for sensitive national security decision-making. This is according to the legal complaint. And Judge Boasberg gets to preside over this one. Lucky guy, huh? I mean, don't forget, this is the judge, okay, just to back up for a second. This is the judge that when the planes were in the air to El Salvador with the people from Venezuela that were known to be criminals and had been arrested for criminal activity, and they were sending them to El Salvador to the prison. This is the judge that said, "Hey, hang on, you gotta wait a second." And they're like, "No, we don't. We have the 1798 Alien Enemies Act, and we're using that." And I even wonder if they could use the Patriot Act in a way, because don't forget, the Patriot Act would expel anybody who is believed to be a threat to the United States. You have Tom Homan, meanwhile, going on TV on Fox saying, "Hey, we're going to keep doing this all day long." And sure enough, more planes were going out. Pam Bondi barely answered this guy's questions, the judge. Okay, she barely answered any of his questions. She blew through the original deadline, so we extended it. And then she kind of blew through that one. It was like noon on Thursday, and we were sitting around at 3 o'clock on Thursday, and stuff still hadn't come through. I mean, so much so that there was a guy on CNN, Eli Honig, who used to be in the DOJ, and he's like, "Wow, I'm almost like impressed. I actually am impressed. Like they really don't care two bits about this judge, because their feeling on this judge is that he's way overstepping his bounds." Anyway, Tom Homan is like, "No, we're going to keep doing our job. I'm committed to it. The president's committed to it. And we're going to get rid of the really bad guys that are here in the country." Watch them.
Another flight every day. The teams are going to be out there every day. Every day, the men and women of ICE are going to be in the neighborhoods of this nation arresting criminal, illegal alien, public safety threats, and national security threats. Lawrence, you're not going to stop us. We made a promise to the American people. The President Trump has made a promise to American people. We're going to make this country safe again. I wake up every morning loving my job because I work for the greatest president in the history of my life, and we're going to make this country safe again. I'm proud to be a part of this administration. We're not stopping. I don't care what the judges think. I don't care what the left thinks. We're coming.
Wow. Okay. So that's what they're up against, all right? Again, this is not the same Trump administration that you've seen before. So consider that within the context of also Donald Trump. Just yesterday, we broke this news right here on the show moments after it happened. He announced that he was declassifying all the Russia documents. Remember Crossfire Hurricane? He said, guess what? It's all coming out in the open. We're going to see everything, because I really want to understand what was going on with the Carter Page thing, where they were tapping his phone and they were falsifying documents to get a FISA warrant to do it. All because Hillary Clinton had commissioned some opposition research, and it went through the law firm, then Fusion GPS, then through the ex-British spy, Christopher Steele, who put together a little hatchet job, which was basically opposition research, and then they turned that in to the FBI. And Comey then went on, I showed you this all yesterday, he bragged about it, like, "Oh, I'm so smart about the way I can go after these guys." Well, this can't happen again. It's not going to happen again. And they're going to make sure it doesn't happen again. A quick shout out to something I am happy to participate in. I'm going to be attending a summit in Savannah, Georgia, May 1st and 2nd. I'd hope you might be there too. Maybe you can join me. I'm going to be on stage with some really terrific media stars. I'm looking at the copy they gave me. This is for the Freedom Fighters Summit. And I got to say, these guys know what they're doing because they put my name first. The technical copy that they'd like me to read is that we're basically going to talk about some of the biggest issues, right, facing our nation with conservative luminaries leading America's political revolution, media stars like Trish Regan first. I wonder if they knew they were sending this to me. Anyway, we're going to have a lot of other people there. You know Bill Bennett. He has a lot to say on education. My friend Sarah Carter, just a tremendous journalist herself, was with me at Fox when I was there. Mike Gallagher, who's over at Salem with me. Grover Norquist. I love Grover. We go way back. And of course, Grover's very much with me about low taxation. Steve Moore, same thing. Kellyanne Conway's going to be there. We have Governors Youngkin, Governor Kemp, along with members of President Trump's cabinet that are going to be there, members of Congress, and it is all happening in this one place for our Freedom Summit in Georgia, Savannah, Georgia, May 1st and 2nd. So you can get tickets to this. I encourage you to do this. It's not just any event. It's like the only event the Job Creator Networks has every year. It is a sort of legendary thing, Freedom Fighters Summit. And I encourage you to go take oh, by the way, we've got Rob Schneider coming, the comedian, and also Lee Greenwood. You know that song. I might just have to get up on stage and sing it with him. Anyway, lots of opportunities to enjoy golf and tour Savannah, you name it. So you can reserve your spot at this one-of-a-kind event, beautiful event in beautiful Savannah, Georgia. All you have to do is go to jcn2025summit.com, use promo code SALEM, SALEM, for a special discount, because when you buy one ticket, you get the second one 50% off. Okay, so a little deal there. Actually, I should also mention this. We only have 150 tickets, so act fast. 150 tickets. Use the Salem discount. Go to jcn2025summit.com now. Tickets, only 150 of them. Go there before they sell out. Again, jcn2025summit.com. Use promo code Salem to get that discount. Take advantage of this special discount that we're offering. So I'm looking forward to it. Right? Savannah, Georgia. I love Savannah, Georgia. Just have to be careful of the alligators. Anyway, Trump is demanding voter ID. I mean, you'd think that he's ending the world by the way the left is acting. I just got a whole bunch of things lighting up on my phone from the New York Times saying this is absolutely a violation of executive power. You can't actually ask people for ID when they go to vote. A little odd, but that's their story and they're sticking to it. This is a big deal. Let me show you.
Lastly, sir, we have an executive order for your attention on the very important subject of election integrity. We believe that this executive order is the farthest reaching executive action taken in the history of the Republic to secure our elections. Among numerous other aspects of this executive order, this is going to cut down on illegal immigrants on the voter rolls, ensure that the Department of Homeland Security and the data that they have available is being fully weaponized to ensure that illegal immigrants aren't voting. This will include a citizenship question on the federal voting form for the first time. This executive order instructs the EAC to cut federal funding to states that don't take reasonable steps to secure their election. This calls on the Department of Justice to vigorously prosecute election crimes, particularly in states that we don't believe are in compliance with federal law around election integrity. I could go on and on for a while, sir, but the compliance with National Election Day rules, cracking down and investigating and prosecuting foreign interference in our elections, revoking President Biden's Executive Order 14019, which essentially weaponized government to corrupt and pollute our election process. There's a lot in here, but we believe that these are very important steps that we need to be taking as an administration at your direction to ensure that our elections are as secure as they possibly can be.
Okay, you all understand that? Yes. Election fraud. You've heard the term.
Okay, so he's signing the executive order. This is a big deal. I mean, they're saying this could be one of the biggest deals ever. I'm just saying, it shouldn't be what they're making it into. I did some research, and if you go around the world, every major country requires ID when you go to vote, whether you're in Germany, whether you're in France, whether you're in Italy, whether you're in India. I mean, India can figure out that we probably need IDs when people go to vote. Canada, I mean, come on. Although I guess in Canada they have some kind of special exception where if somebody vouches for you, you can still vote. This is nuts. I mean, I'm sorry. What's really going on here? Think about it. Why is it an issue? Why is it that they don't want people to have voter ID? I guess, yes, going back in time, a lot of years, there was a time when a portion of the population wasn't sophisticated enough to maybe have a driver's license or a passport or even just like some little national ID card of some sort. Like, listen, you can't get into a building anywhere in the country right now without showing proof of ID. You can't get on a Greyhound bus without proof of ID. The whole world has changed. I was thinking about it. I remember when I was first in school, I went to a conservatory because I studied music before going to Columbia to study history and economics. But I remember somebody like posting their ticket to Chicago on a bulletin board at the conservatory. Like they had, an airline ticket, and they were like, I'll sell you the airline ticket because they couldn't make the flight. And you used to be able to do that, right? You could buy somebody else's ticket. Like, this is going back a while, but times have changed and now everybody has IDs. Like, you can't tell me that somebody doesn't have an ID. And why are you trying to protect that? Unless, I don't know. Think about the 800,000 people that they wanted to be able to encourage to vote in New York City elections that didn't have IDs, that weren't citizens. Heck, they may have IDs in New York, right? Because the DMV is all too willing to comply. That's a whole other issue that Pam Bondi's been looking into. Well, if they want people to be able to vote in local elections, I think that tells you everything that you need to know. That's why they wanted all of these open borders, despite the fact that, again, nowhere else in the world do they have open borders, even in super duper liberal EU territory. Only within the countries that are part of the EU do they have those open borders. But if you go from a EU country into a non-EU country, guess what? The borders are tightly controlled. Australia has really, really tight border control. Look, it's not easy in Canada. It's not easy anywhere else. You can go to Mexico, for goodness sakes, and find tougher border control right there in Mexico than you can. I mean, going north is probably fine. It's going south that's the issue. Then you can find here in the United States. So why the big deal? Think about this. Why are they going to fight him on? Well, first of all, they're going to fight him on everything. Right? Up is down, down is up, night is day, day is night. Anything that Trump says, even if they agreed with it before, is suddenly no-go territory. I mean, think about just all the clips I've showed you about Obama and Hillary Clinton and everybody saying that they did not believe in illegal immigration. How many years ago? Not too long ago. It was just pre-Trump. And then all of a sudden Trump comes along and he's like, immigration's an issue. And they're like, no, immigration's not an issue. We want to make sure that everybody can come here. And they're going to keep on coming in and in and in. And sure enough, they did keep coming in and in and in. Look at this graphic from Axios. This is Border Patrol apprehensions on the U.S.-Mexico border. And take a look at this little number. Okay, so you're going back all the way to, this goes back quite some ways. Let's see here. We've got it all the way back to the year 2000. So this is the last 25 years. Who did it escalate the most under? None other than one Joe Biden. It's incredible. I think this sort of tells a very, very big story here. And now you're looking at just 8,326 crossings, despite having seen nearly 300,000 crossings under one Joe Biden. So think about that. As he works aggressively to make sure that we do have IDs when it comes to vote, what is the harm here? What is the problem? We are no longer living in an era where people do not have access to identification, okay? Like, everybody has some form of ID. And if you don't, you probably ought to get one. This shouldn't be that hard. I mean, sometimes I'm like, it's crazy that I'm even talking about this, that we even have to talk about this. But there's no common sense there anywhere because it's just their TDS. But I'll tell you, common sense exists in the rest of the country, guys, does it not? Take a look at the latest and greatest out of CNN. I told you, they're having to admit it right now because if you look at the new polls, there's one out of Marist, guess what? Huge numbers for Trump. In other words, Americans like what he's doing.
Let's take a look at the percentage of the country who say that we're on the right track. It's actually a very high percentage when you compare it to some historical numbers. What are we talking about? According to Marist, 45% say that we're on the right track. That's the second highest that Marist has measured since 2009. How about NBC News? 44%. That's the highest since 2004. Wow. The bottom line is the percentage of Americans who say we're on the right track is through the roof. And if you were to compare it to when presidents have historically been reelected, of course, Trump has not constitutionally eligible to run for re-election, but I think it sort of puts it in perspective. 42% of the country says the country is on the right track when the incumbent party is re-elected. And also keep in mind, back when Kamala Harris lost and the Democrats were turned out of power, only about 27 to 28% of the country said the country is on the right track. The bottom line is right now, a much higher percentage of the country says we're on the right track.
Yeah. Because you know what? We are. Inflation has come down. It's like some kind of miracle. Manufacturing numbers are going up. Border crossings, way down. And yet the left wants to pull little antics like I suspect they're pulling with this whole Signal app thing. Listen, you know what? CNN doesn't understand it and they can't believe it, but actually voters approve of these deportations. Yeah, like 63%. They've got their jaws on the floor over at CNN as they look at this data.
63%, according to the latest Fox News poll, say that they favor deporting those immigrants. So that's a pretty high number. Can you square that with what we just heard from Priscilla's reporting?
Yeah, I think that obviously the president has kind of blanketed the airwaves with saying that all of these people deported are criminals. And given the fact that we, reporters like Priscilla, we have very limited information to who exactly has been deported. The government has not handed over names. I know CBS got a hold of a list of names, but that hasn't been provided to those who are asking for who was actually deported. And there is a difference between someone who came into the country illegally versus someone who overstayed their visa. That's not a crime, versus someone who has no criminal record, no criminal history.
Okay. I'm going to go back to something that's sort of simple, or should be kind of simple. And that's that, there's a legal way to come into the country and there's an illegal way to come into the country. And we're for the legal way of coming into the country, just like the Democrats used to be. I mean, what has happened to this crazy world other than TDS on steroids? But I'll tell you, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy when AOC is now the leader of the Democrat Party. Yeah, according to a new poll here, CNN, in conjunction with SSRS, conducted this thing in early March. And what did they find? One, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is leading the pack. I mean, followed by Kamala Harris, which is just a sad state. Like, honestly, you know what? You guys keep doing that all day long because we'll just keep winning and winning and winning and winning. When you have AOC and Kamala Harris, the communist Bernie Sanders and Hakeem Jeffries, who, by the way, is all over the airwaves going on and on about this Signal thing. Wow, Barack Obama. And Lordy, you got Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett pulling up the rear. Jasmine Crockett, who has now been charged with assault. Yeah, can't make it up. And this one isn't against Ted Cruz, although you'd think, right? Because she's all over going after Ted Cruz.
I think that you punch. I think you punch. I think you're okay with you okay with punching. I think and I love Colin, and I think towards the end he started to punch a little harder. But it's Ted Cruz. I mean, this dude has to be knocked over the head hard, right? There is no niceties with him. At all. You go clean off on him, right?
Wrong. No, Jasmine, you don't. She's said similar things, by the way, about one Elon Musk, and she may have some real trouble on her hands because Pam is all over that. We're going to get to that in a second. But first, you know what? I want to show you what went down on Capitol Hill just yesterday. This is why charges are being filed against one Jasmine Crockett, because she started to attack the reporter and grabbed his camera who's coming at her. Let's take a peek.
Hello, Congresswoman.
Horse manure. Well, that sounds like fun.
Wait, Congresswoman Crockett.
But it sounds.
Congresswoman Crockett, you were recently on a Tesla takedown call calling for violence on the 29th. Would you like to clarify your comments?
As you can see.
Congresswoman, will you condone violence at the Tesla?
Woo! Okay, so don't mess with Jasmine. I guess she's trying to make that one clear. She's going to take you out, whether you're Ted Cruz or just some lonely little reporter asking a very important question. Right? What exactly did you mean by those Elon Musk comments? Well, now guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We taxpayers get to pay for a police escort for Jasmine Crockett to make sure she doesn't go after any more reporters. Check this one out.
Hey, Congresswoman, do you regret your earlier comments you made about Governor Greg Abbott?
See the police guy? He's all tough. That's really to prevent Jasmine from, I guess, grabbing the camera. And this is crazy. Really, really. She said some horrible things about Governor Abbott. Started calling him Governor Hot Wheels with a few obscenities thrown in. And keep in mind, he's in a wheelchair. So she's making fun of him for that. She's really just, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to this poll. You know they're desperate when like the new up-and-comer on the list here is one Jasmine Crockett. You know they're really, really, really desperate. And Pam Bondi's onto it. So Pam Bondi is now lashing out at Crockett, and she's lashing out at Crockett because of this little number. Here we are, it's, days away from Crockett's birthday, and she's calling for this.
Thank you so much, Annie. And I won't hold y'all because I know how much people love to listen to politicians. So I'll make sure that I keep it short. But I am truly here for very selfish reasons. Starting with on March 29th, it's my birthday. And all I want to see happen on my birthday is for Elon to be taken down. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's kind of a problem because no sooner did she say that you had some arson situations and other problems at Texas dealerships, something Pam Bondi immediately jumped on.
Now you have this Congresswoman Crockett who is calling for attacks on Elon Musk on her birthday. Let's take him out on my birthday, she says. And yet she turns and says, oh, I'm not calling for violence. Well, she is an elected public official. And so she needs to tread very carefully because nothing will happen to Elon Musk, and we're going to fight to protect all of the Tesla owners throughout this country, and it's this basic safety. Once again, domestic terrorism is going to come to a stop in our country.
I am telling you, and that was actually on my friend Maria's show, so thank you for that clip. I am telling you, guys, like we're in a very weird place where people like a representative from Congress can call for violence on an individual or even the individuals that are driving those cars. I mean, those are mostly liberals, let's be honest. Like if you bought a Tesla way back when, up until quite recently, Elon was like the darling of the left because he created this EV industry. I mean, some on the left didn't like him because he didn't have the unions, et cetera, right? That's why he was excluded when Biden did his big shindig at the White House celebrating EVs and he didn't invite Elon. Ooh, that was a mistake, buddy, right? Anyway, Crockett is now responding to one Pam Bondi going, of course, on the other left-wing outlet that's not actually NPR or PBS, and that would be MSNBC.
Just in case the slow people listening decide to clip this up later, I just want to say that I have never promoted violence whatsoever, yet I've also never made excuse for those violent actors such as the ones on January 6th. So Pam Bondi, if you have an issue with terrorism, maybe you should talk to your boss about locking back up those guys that he let out that participated in January 6th.
When Pam Bondi, though, says, tread carefully, what does that even mean?
Yeah. All it means is that she's attempting to get me to say, oh, I'm going to be scared and I'm just not going to say anything because they are willing to literally break the law. I mean, that's what we've seen them do. They are ignoring court orders. They are ignoring what our own laws are. When we look at things such as impoundment, things like that, this entire administration is rogue. And this isn't about partisanship. I keep trying to tell people that we are living in the time of good versus evil, right versus wrong.
Good versus evil, right versus wrong. Oh, wait. Should we ask Katherine Maher about that from NPR, who doesn't believe there is any right or wrong, only her right or wrong, right? Jasmine, you only believe in your right and wrong as well. Well, Pam had something to say about that too.
Yeah, Sean, it is. And after she said that about Elon, she said, well, I didn't mean violence. But, however, Your words have consequences. And what happened after she said that about Elon Musk? She's a Texan in her own home state. After she said that, this morning, 3 explosive devices were found in Austin, Texas. So she needs to unequivocally denounce the violence. She must apologize immediately, not only to all Texans, but to our country, to the American shareholders of Tesla, because she is promoting violence.
And here I am. See, I get distracted responding to your comments. Those are some lashes, Don. I'm telling you. Don is saying, you know, how can we take this woman seriously at all? There's just absolutely no possible way to take her seriously because she's got like lashes from another world, right? Like seriously, another world, you guys. They're like caterpillars living on her eyes. They take on this whole other being. I mean, unbelievable. Anyway, Pam Bondi is onto her, and look, she's got a lot on her plate right now. I'm just going to say something for Pam, right? She's going after Letitia James. She's going after the head of the DMV in New York. She's going after Kathy Hochul. She's going after Jeffrey Epstein's files. She's got a lot. And she's trying to respond. This is how they're trying to slow her down, right? She's trying to respond to this judge over the deportations. And I imagine now she's going to get sucked into this signal thing. And my concern for her and for the administration is there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And, you know, you can go out and you can play a game of whack-a-mole, but until you actually really cleanse the system of the people and the sort of perverse ideology that has landed us in this horrible spot, you're not going to change anything. Someone said this to me recently vis-a-vis what's going on at Columbia University right now. So Columbia University lost, $400 million in funding from the federal government because they weren't protecting Jewish students on campus. And so they sort of said, oh, no, we'll do everything, we'll, you know, whatever you want. And then out of the other side of their mouth, they're saying something completely different to the student body and to some of the other folks involved. And so one of my friends who's actually a significant donor to Columbia University said to me, nothing's going to change until they get rid of the entire board and they get rid of the entire, like all the heads of the departments in the university itself. They've really got to make some fundamental changes. And so whether you're talking about a university system or whether you're talking about the government right now, you have the status quo, the swamp, the deep state that they're up against. And it's a lot, right, for anyone to take on. So I hope Pam gets lots of good people around her and that she just keeps chugging along and it has a laser focus right now because there's a lot of bad guys in there. I'm glad that my friend Dan Bongino is now over at FBI alongside Kash Patel. They're trying to get things done and there's stuff to do, right? You got to go after, for goodness sakes, and figure out what the HELL went down back in 2016 with James Comey. He's terrified of it. It's the reason he didn't want Donald Trump to win, because they did some funny stuff and we need answers. I'll tell you, another organization, whether you're talking about, you know, institutions like government, whether you're talking about institutions like academia, or whether you're talking about an entertainment institute, which probably, I'm guessing somehow, some way, gets a lot of money from some of these NGOs and these foreign efforts to control media abroad. I'm talking Disney, because it was unreal how Disney just went after and continually went after none other than Donald Trump, both in their debates and, of course, in that show that we all despise. And I promise you, I won't show you anything from them today, The View. I mean, it was crazy the way they were going off on Donald Trump. And they got authorization from somewhere to do that. Why? I suspect Disney was absolutely terrified that they were going to lose all this money from USAID, etc. I'd be really curious to know how much they're getting, right? Like any international money to promote international themes that are relevant, which may have something to do with why we had to deal with the Snow White from Colombia. You know, I'm not going to, that's neither here nor there. I'll just say that, okay? Whatever. Look, in opera, you have like a 300-pound woman dying of consumption, and we get over it, right? Because it's her voice that matters. So, you know, if Rachel Zegler were a decent actress, like nothing else matters, okay? Like, but she's not. And she's not that good a singer either. She was way better in West Side Story. I'm saying this because I actually went through the pain of actually going to this horrible, horrible, horrible show. And I was bored. My kids were bored. The whole theater was bored. There were kids like throwing popcorn at each other everywhere because nobody wanted to be there. A $270 million disaster. Plus, you got to think about the money they spent on marketing, another $100 million. I mean, this is not good. They made somewhere around $84 million at the box office. That is a terrible showing. And then let me show you what they're saying on IMDb. They're giving it a 1.8 rating out of 10. I think 1.8 is frankly too generous for this Snow White. So they got a lot of problems there. Take a look at Rachel Zegler. Somehow the narcissist that she is trying to tell a different story. Here she is on her Instagram account saying it's the #1 movie in the world. Gosh, Rachel, I hate to break it to you, but have you read the New York Times? I mean, when you lose the New York Times, that's saying something. The New York Times is like, no, there's like 7 bazillion reasons why this thing failed. But I'm going to tell you the #1 reason, and that would be Rachel Zegler. And it has nothing to do with the fact that she's half Colombian. And everything to do with, 1, she's not talented, and 2, she's way too opinionated and doesn't have the stature, frankly, to be able to justify those kind of opinions. And then she put an entire studio at risk. $370 million, because I'm counting the $270 for production, I'm counting the $100 for promotion. She puts that all at risk because she's tweeting things out alongside the trailer like, oh, free Palestine. Here we go. Remember this little number? This was bad because basically whatever side of the aisle you're on this one, and you know what side I'm on, but whatever side of the aisle you're on this one, you're really not going to want to see it because you're not going to like Gal Gadot that much. And guess what? You're not going to like Rachel Zegler that much, right? So she's alienating everyone. She tweeted out the trailer to Disney and then wrote after she tweeted it, and always remember free Palestine. So this was a big snafu. And there was a big New York Times article, as I said, Snow White and the 7 kajillion controversies. It was one thing after another from the people that were supposed to play the dwarfs and they subbed them out for computer-generated images to this whole controversy with Rachel Zegler, a very untalented actress who really belongs back in her High School Musical in New Jersey somewhere as opposed to the big screen. So it was miscast, something that the New York Times actually cites. And then there were all these controversies. One of the things that came up in the New York Times reporting and then was echoed by Variety was that apparently they were so stressed out about her because she was like doing everything she could to sabotage the film with her commentary. She eventually sabotaged herself in her own career because nobody's going to hire her. Trust me, nobody would hire her. She has no talent, is not especially pretty, can't sing, and yet she's, this musical genius if you listen to her. And no one's going to hire her because she's a political hot rod that you cannot trust. According to the reporting, basically, people were stunned. They expressed, quote, shock that the Snow White star would commingle the promotion of its $270 million tentpole with any kind of political statement, going back to her tweet about free Palestine. A Disney executive raised the studio's concerns with Zegler's team, while the film's producer, Mark Platt, flew to New York to speak with her, sat down with her, directly asked her to take down the tweet. She refused to take down the tweet, and then he apparently had this heart-to-heart, and he's like, okay, Rachel, there's a lot of money on this, $270 million from the studio, another $100 million in promotion, and we run certain security risks as well with Gal Gadot because of what you're saying. And, she's living her own little world. They assigned her at some point a social media handler. Like she wasn't allowed to tweet anything unless they actually saw it first. Think about that. She is highly irresponsible, which is why I say Rachel Zegler's career is over. Absolutely done for. And you know what? It should be. Because she's not in a place. Look, you know who else is done for? I would suspect George Clooney. Because George Clooney kind of went where he shouldn't have gone. What is it with these actors that want to be overly political? Guys, you know what? You want to do politics. Heck, have a podcast. The only future that Rachel Zegler right now has, in all seriousness, I suspect, is maybe being the pre-show for Rachel Maddow on MSNBC at night. That's like as good as it's going to get. Because no movie studio will hire this woman. She is a hot rod. She is a total wild card. And she doesn't have the talent to back it up. Remember what she said about Trump voters? This is after the whole scandal that went down with Free Palestine. She started basically saying F Trump and, you should never know peace, and anybody who supports him should never know peace. So the poor studio's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I'm like, you know what, guys, you get what you pay for, right? You hired this woman. You enabled her with her she, he, them, they, whatever, pronouns all over her Twitter account. Let's go to them. Yeah, she's got all, well, where's her tweet? Okay, the tweet has she, her, hers. Remember when Gina wouldn't put her pronouns in, or she put like bebop boop or something, and they went crazy and she lost her career at Disney? Elon's actually backing her in her lawsuit against Disney because that was just unreal. Rachel was the one calling for it. So you know what? What goes around comes around. That's what I say. And so good riddance, Rachel Zegler. We didn't like you anyway. No, we didn't. Bernie Sanders walks off the set at ABC. We were talking about that one yesterday. Remember that story? Something else. I'll say, you know what? The Democrat Party is lost. They don't have Disney on their side anymore because Disney's freaking out. They have to get rid of their DEI stuff. And they have to, maybe actually come up with some movies, not just sequels in the future. I think the days of the sequels are done. Nelson Beltz was onto something, the activist investor who was like, the stock is going nowhere because you guys have no creativity. But how can you have any creativity when you got only one form of thinking? And it's actually not a form of thinking that the rest of the country actually believes in. So they're kind of up a creek without a paddle. And I think they're going to continue. It's why I wouldn't invest in Disney right now. We did write about it at 76 Research. Again, these are our top performers in our top 3 portfolios. They're American Resilience, which is growth portfolio, inflation protection, because there's a lot of inflation probably still coming around the corner. If you're investing for the long term, you want to guard against that. And an income builder, because hopefully you want to retire someday. I encourage you to go and sign up. It's just $1 a month for the first 2 months, 76research.com. Again, this is my baby that I created because I have had so many people come to me over the years and say, Trish, how do I start investing? What do I do? I mean, we're talking all kinds of people. I remember makeup artists always, even at CNBC where it's nothing but, markets all day long. And I said, there's a lot to consider, but I've always wanted to create this. So I'm happy that I'm in the position to be able to do that now for you. I'm also happy to give our friends at American Heart for Gold another shout out. Remember, Trish Loves Gold, trishlovesgold.com. Go there for up to $15,000 of free silver. You can text Trish to 65532 today to get more information on that. 844-495-1115 is the number. So take a look at that, you guys. But I'm curious to know what you think, right? What do you think right now about where we are vis-a-vis, like how much is getting accomplished? I saw the Marist poll, and I think everybody's saying, yes, the country is on the right track, but what more do we need to get done? I mean, I'll lay it out. I'm happy that they're going to declassify everything associated with the Russia thing. I think then you need some prosecutions coming. Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, what did you do? Was this all within the law? Was it all within the law because of, those changes to the law, because of the Smith-Mundt Act that was changed and quote unquote modernized? I mean, was this legal under Obama to be able to spoon feed all this propaganda? I mean, I know what wasn't legal. You couldn't forge FISA documents, but interestingly, that same judge that I just told you about, the one that stopped the planes in the air but didn't, or he tried to stop the planes in the air going to El Salvador, that same judge who's now going to be looking over this signal text case, he actually was the judge in the FISA warrant case where Kevin Kleinsman was supposed to actually do a year in jail as a result of forging those documents, and he let him off with just community service. So it kind of, all adds up into something rather interesting. But this is a behemoth that Donald Trump, with Elon Musk by his side, has taken on. And there's a lot of work for these guys to do. I'll tell you that. Thank you to them for being willing to do it. And thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. Leslie, thank you for being so devoted. Luke as well, Cat Crazy, Don. reminding you guys to smash the likes because it helps the algorithm. It really, really does. Good to have you all here. David as well. I see you in the house. Mickey too. Thank you for being here. Make sure to subscribe. I will be back here with you tomorrow.